This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John McEnroe. Joining me, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Boy, do we have a lot of great things to talk about. A canceled game for the first time in over 100 years. We're also going to talk about the Detroit Lions, a victory in Chicago. What does this mean for their draft position? Are fans happy? Is Darrel Bevell the savior? Can he still be on the staff if the Golden Boy comes to town? We're going to talk all about it. But before we get to all that good stuff, a dilemma has arose for both Adam and myself. Because I've been at this office now about 7 years or so. You know, we started podcasting from the basement of my home. Then we moved to another office down the road here in Sterling Heights. Then we finally locked into a place that's absolutely perfect. A place where I can do both the practice and the podcast and run a little mini studio out of my psychology practice. It is amazing. It is flawless. It is perfect. I can put all my trinkets, all my stuff. We can broadcast. We can run a full podcast studio, full network for the first time. And you don't think about it because obviously the bathroom, the facilities are great. For the first time, as we're recording this, walk into the bathroom to kind of throw away some garbage, and I see the sign and it says out of order. And I'm like, uh-oh. What does that mean? Now, I can still go number one, no problem. They have a side stall. But if I have to go number two, it is out of order. Now, there is a women's bathroom, so I put it out there on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. I've never, I have gone to the women's bathroom to go number one. I don't believe I have ever gone to the bathroom in a women's bathroom to go number two. Now, some advice I've gotten is to check out the local McDonald's, go there, but you know what? Sorry, guys, the one here is closed. They're not letting you in. You can only go through the drive-thru. So the restrictions of COVID makes it freaky. So do I just try to hold it for the next 10 hours that I'm here? Or do I just truck over and drop a deuce in the women's bathroom?
So now here's the thing. With the setup of the bathrooms there, I believe they do have locks on the inside of the doors. Yeah. So if I'm you, I'm definitely using the ladies' room.
You have no problem with it?
I had to race home the other day from the gym because I almost had a blowout on one of the machines. And I just happened to get into the house and onto the toilet in the nick of time. So when you got to go, you got to go. So I'm going to use that ladies' room all day. And if I destroy it, I destroy it. Sorry, ladies.
That's the way. Have you gone in a women's bathroom?
I'm wondering. I think when we were doing everything together and COVID wasn't a thing, I think I utilized the ladies' room there once. Okay. And I think it was just to go pee. It wasn't to go number two.
Understood. See, it's a weird feeling. So I think I'm going to hold it. I think that, like you, I typically handle that business early in the morning. So I'm hoping that nothing I eat runs through me, or it's going to be a bad day. You're going to see Doc rolling through that Twitter in a very angry state. You're going to be like, what's going on? Usually he's jovial. Usually he's fun. But I think that it's interesting, too, because there's that whole, that typically it's slow in the office. There's only one or two other companies. The moment I sit down and lock the door, there's going to be everyone shaking that door and being like, oh, and I was like, oh, I don't
There'll be four ladies.
Exactly.
Hey, I got to use the bathroom.
This is never in use. I can't believe it. What's that smell? So I can't believe it. First time, I can't take the bathroom for granted. So what are you going to do? That's what happens, man. Everything can happen in this age of COVID. Thank goodness. I think you and I both have survived in the 8 months. I have not had it. I'm thinking about getting the antibodies test because there was maybe a small stretch of time that I was a little bit tired, but I slept and wasn't sick or nothing like that. So obviously, if I do get the antibodies test, I'm like, oh, maybe I just had it and just kept it going. But so far, so good, man. Stay healthy. It's crazy out here. Obviously, as the result of what's going on in Michigan, it's been crazy because it kind of was like a day-to-day thing with Michigan in the game. And you have usually Jim Harbaugh addressing the media on Monday, and that was postponed to Tuesday. Tuesday, they said, okay, we're going to have him talk at noon. All of a sudden, boom. And all of a sudden, you get the alert 4 o'clock. It's been canceled. Michigan, Ohio State will not play in this season. And I think that's a great thing for Michigan. For all the talk of people saying they ducked them, no, man, it's not that. It's fun to say. It's fun to poke. And if you're a Spartan, to say, yeah, they avoided getting their ass kicked. But there's going to be, when it comes out, if we ever figure it out, there's going to be a reported 20 to 25 cases of COVID and maybe 40 with contact tracing and injuries. So no matter what, Michigan could not field a team. It's not one of those things where you go, just, lop off 40 players and just show up and take an ass whooping. If, games were canceled, I don't believe that Michigan was going to play games. This is nothing nefarious. This is something, though, that we will debate. It's negligent on Michigan's part to have this happen because of the fact you fought so hard to get this off the ground and to play, to not be able to finish the job, to not know that Thanksgiving in Michigan was going to result in a spike, to maybe not force a quarantine or force these athletes to figure it out, I think is negligent. But I do think there was so much that we could glean from the Ward Manuel and Jim Harbaugh presser. It was great. I had an opportunity. I timed it perfectly. And I'll talk about it too. Covering sports in COVID is something that I'm going to miss if we have to get back out there, because it provided such a luxury for me to kind of build up myself in the DSP network and SIL Lions, and I'll share that later. But there was so much to take away from that presser. Cuz, what was your reaction now? You're not going to see Ohio State run a train on Michigan.
It doesn't really bother me. I'm not bummed out by it. I'm not upset by it. I talked to Little B about this last week. I think this was probably the best thing that could happen for the University of Michigan for a couple of different reasons. One, Michigan's not going to go out there and get embarrassed. Number two, this helps the recruiting class. The big issue this year is what's going on with Jim Harbaugh. What's going on with his contract? He looks like a totally different person. All these questions surrounding Jim Harbaugh, and nobody has any answers yet. And you're going to kind of delve into that in a minute with the question that you posed at the presser. But nobody knows what's going on with Jim Harbaugh. So this kind of removes him from having to answer any questions about this. It removes the university from really having to answer any questions about this. They get to go back down into that yellow submarine that they first went into when Jim Harbaugh first got here, and they get to basically be out of everybody's eye. They don't have to really address anything. They've already addressed everything they have to address with the media. We're not playing. COVID has taken its toll on our team, so we're going into hibernation now, and hopefully all the students come out okay. And that's all they have to do. I'm not upset that they're not playing. Does it suck? Sure, a little bit. But really and truly, if you're a Michigan fan, did you really want to see them get rolled up on? Did you really want – Ryan Day was going in there with a sole purpose of trying to put over 100 points on your team. And with the way that defense looked with Don Brown at the helm, it looked like it was possible. So I'm not mad about this. I think this does two things, right? I think one, it helps Michigan in a couple different ways that I've already laid out. Number two, I think it's going to show you how important Ohio State is to the Big Ten, because the Big Ten laid out this basically all these rules and what you had to do to compete for a Big Ten championship. And now what's going to happen is they're having a meeting on, I believe they're having this meeting on Wednesday. This is coming out on Thursday. They're having a meeting on Wednesday, and they're talking about restructuring these rules to try to figure out a way to get Ohio State into the Big Ten championship game, so then they could then represent the Big Ten in the college football playoff. So you're about to see how important Ohio State is and what the NCAA, and not just the NCAA, but what the Big Ten really thinks and believes of every other conference or every other team in this conference, and just how damn important Ohio State is to the relevance of the Big Ten.
Absolutely.
So just kind of keep your eyes open to what's about to unfold here, because it's nuts. Like, Indiana has had a fantastic season. Indiana should be representing the East going to the Big Ten championship, but it's probably not going to happen.
See, I wish there were so many other contingency plans. You've heard some great ones out there. I would love to see Ohio State match up against Texas A&M, who also do not have an opponent this week. Maybe even just extend the season out. It just feels like they've said, okay, we're done, we're going to cancel it, and there's no opportunity potentially to get this in. Now, they said, it was asked, Ryan Elke, friend of the podcast, asked, is there an opportunity to kind of reshape this and do everything? And Ward Manuel said, we're going to try to exhaust all options, but it just doesn't seem feasible with the schedule to get it in time to meet the requirements. So while they're giving it lip service, I don't see the feasibility because of the fact that Michigan and the Big Ten and everybody involved kind of delayed everything. You gave yourself no outs. There were no chances that if there was an outbreak if there was one outbreak that affected games, you basically were going to have a situation that we find ourselves in right now. So for me, like I said, I'm more frustrated that, Michigan, the leaders and best, who talked about how important it was to keep the athletes safe, how important it was to monitor this and things like that, to not be able to finish the season, I think is really a detriment, because you have athletes that could have showed out for NFL teams. There's still an opportunity to coach some players. There's still that experience of playing Ohio State to kind of see what you need to be at. So for Michigan not to hit the standard, I know it's tough in Michigan. It's rampant. It's hard. But look at Tom Izzo. When he addressed the media prior to the Virginia game, he said, look, they're basically like they're in prison. They got to show up at practice, hit the online class, and and stay in their room. So it's challenging, but if you want to be able to play, you got to make sacrifices. And it hasn't come out officially, but that the athletes gathered around at Thanksgiving, and it's not outlandish to speculate that, hanging out with family, having a little bit of a break, allowed the COVID to seep into the Michigan program. And it's just unacceptable. It can't happen. It's big-time sports. And I know it's kids, and I know it's COVID, and I know that it's a delicate subject to talk about, but Michigan needed to play this game. They need to play a season. Now everyone has a bad taste in their mouth. The seniors don't play Ohio State. Michigan doesn't win a single game at home. It's just bad all the way around. And then you're forced to have a presser where, a guy like me who's just sitting at his office putting on a camera is like, hey, tell us a little bit about the contract. I know it's COVID, but, it's like, okay, it went really perfect, cause it really did. Cause I was like, okay, I knew I was going to be the one to ask.
Before we get into that, because I want to give you your time so you can kind of talk about that, because I think that's important. And I think that's a big looming issue that's going on with the university and what's going on with the football team right now. But I just want to make sure that you and I are clear here. You're saying that it's the team's fault or the players' fault because they had Thanksgiving dinner and somebody came back with COVID, and that has now ruined the season.
Collectively, look, remember what Jim Harbaugh tweeted, which now shows up on Freezing Cold Takes. Test negative, play football. Remember when there was this big debate, should the Big Ten play? Should they do it? It was touted by Michigan that, hey, we're safe. We're, the likelihood of athletes getting it is not as great here than it would be in their regular life. So let's keep them insulated. And then you realize, how did this happen? How do, 30, 40 people get COVID or whatever number, the reported number that you're hearing is 16. But how does this happen? This is not supposed to happen at this point in time.
Dude, you've got to realize, though, that if one person gets it, all these guys are basically huddled around together all day long. You do the contact tracing. That's why the number gets up to like 40. So if only 16 are testing positive, like all it takes is just one person getting it. Okay. And there's like no way you can sometimes stop this. Do you know anybody who's had it yet or no?
Yeah, it's been around. People are real close to me. I haven't done.
A couple people who have contacted it, right?
Yeah.
So I work at a facility where we've had multiple COVID outbreaks and multiple COVID scares. On top of that, my sister just got it.
Oh.
And my sister's dealing with all the ramifications from it, and she tried to figure out how she got it. She works in an industry where she's dealing with people every day, so it could have been anything. Like, this is one of those things where I don't think you can point your bony finger of blame at all the players saying, you guys screwed this up, you messed this up. It's Thanksgiving. You guys are going to – it wasn't like the players were able to go home. The players basically sat around inside of a cafeteria and had turkey on a styrofoam plate, and that's what they ate for Thanksgiving. It wasn't like they got to go home and see their family. So it wasn't like it was brought there. It was probably one of those things where somebody happened to run into somebody. And look, I watched the governor's press conference the other day. They were talking about how a family caught COVID at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And they were there for roughly 5 minutes, and they were roughly 15 feet away from somebody. So how you get it, and if you're susceptible to getting it, doesn't necessarily matter. But once you get it, and then you're insulated with everybody else, it spreads like wildfire. So I don't think you can blame the players for this. And I think Michigan, the university itself, has followed all the protocols, and I think they've been on top of this. And I think Harbaugh, you're right. Harbaugh has been a huge proponent of trying to make sure that they can play football and getting this thing off the ground, because you have to remember, their president at the university, Mark Schlissel, is, an epidemiologist. So he's a guy who deals with bacteria and disease all day. He's a guy who's going to he was trying to stop the season from even happening. He was one of the last people in the Big Ten to say, yeah, we can go ahead and play football. While the head football coach is like, come on, president, get on board. We're testing negative. We got this. I think the whole freezing cold takes thing is just, I think it's a troll argument, and I think it's bum. I don't think it's great. I don't think you're doing any justice to the players. I don't think you're doing any justice to what the university has set up, because the university has, by all accounts, followed every protocol necessary. And you're right. You said it when you came on here. You have in excess of possibly 40 players who are going to test positive for this. All right. And you can be upset that the game's not going to be played. All right. But let's not act like this is unforeseen, right? You had teams this year. You had Wisconsin, who had a few players test positive and then canceled a game against, might have been Minnesota. I don't remember. But they just canceled it. Minnesota did the same exact thing. There's been no guidelines and no rules on how to handle any of this. If really and truly you want to be upset at anybody, you should be upset at the leadership of the Big Ten. Be upset with the commissioner of the Big Ten, because he's not set any guidelines for how to handle these situations. And basically each university is operating underneath their own advice and underneath their own guys, from basically their presidents and from their own medical staffs. So if you want to be pissed off at anybody, be pissed off at the leadership of the Big Ten, because again, just getting let down.
Yeah, like I said, because because it's just one of those things where you're getting tested every day. There's a plan in place. Where did this go wrong? It's the one person, or did a couple people violate? It's just you're fascinated to realize, how did this happen when they're such stringent? You've already sacrificed these kids' livelihoods in terms of trying to be as strict as humanly possible. So to have it happen at the worst possible time, late in the season, when there's a lot of ramifications for the Big Ten, for Ohio State, the other member teams, for it to happen, you got to take a look at it. And number one, too, you just got to make sure that everybody involved stays safe and that it doesn't continue to spread. And I do think that it probably marks the end of the season for Michigan. And you just got to figure out how this happened, because now you have to really identify how to move forward in case this does not, this whole COVID situation and this whole pandemic plays into 2021. You got to learn from it. You got to figure out what went wrong, where it happened, how it happened. And I'm just fascinated by the fact that Michigan had to cancel a game, a traditional game that's been played since 1917, was the last time in a wartime it was the last time that Michigan did not suit up and play against Ohio State. So the other aspect was, which is crazy, because I had a feeling more people actually cared about Jim Harbaugh's contract than they even did about COVID, because they've been dealing with it, and they kind of just assumed, the signs point to there's really no positives to play Ohio State for Michigan in terms of competitiveness and what's going to happen, especially after Michigan State got their ass kicked by Ohio State. With half of Ohio State's team gone, you saw that Michigan was going to get rolled, because Ohio State needed to put some nice tape out there, and they were going to do it. So everybody was wondering, okay, how many people got it? And they also wondered, what's going on with Jim Harbaugh's contract? Rumors were floated. It's been reported by a couple different people that there's some interest from the NFL, that there's also been a 3-year contract that's for less money, a pay decrease that's on the table. So I timed it perfectly. I figured, okay, just looking at it, I don't think the first question or two are going to be about Jim Harbaugh's contract. I saw, a competitor, a podcast network got in second. I'm like, oh, they're going to ask right away. So, okay. But I waited, and then I saw 3-4, and then I put my name in question for Ward. And how you do it is you get in the Zoom meeting and you wait till people start hitting question. Sometimes 20 people will do it all at once, and you're just SOL. But this time it was kind of slow, because Ward did his opening remarks. So sitting there, boom, it went. Question. The competitor asked about the number of COVID cases, which wasn't addressed. A couple more detailed questions were kind of follow-ups. And then it got to me, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to get to ask it. And I was like, yeah, this is perfect. I had it prepared. I knew I was going to ask it. I knew it was going to be broadcast. And, of course, they butchered my name, which on some of these Zoom meetings I have put in the phonetic spelling. But it's okay. I'm not into it to hearing my name, get read. I asked the question, got it taped.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, well, it was great. Do you notice I kind of seem to ask the big questions at the right time? Coincidence there, right? But it is really great that, and it's an opportunity, because there would be no way for me to get the announcement at 1 and then drive to Ann Arbor by 4. I have another thing going on. So to be able to cover sports like this, because I've sat in like 30, 40 Zoom meetings in the last 3 weeks, I'm invited now to all of them. Nobody shut me out but the Red Wings. And maybe I'm going to start knocking soon, but they've defeated me. I'm on the back burner there. But I'll get all the emails from all the people, and I'm so grateful. Thank you guys for including me. I get to ask questions freely, and I asked it properly. I had a much more written down that was longer and a little bit more trolling. But obviously, you work your measures and say, okay, you can't ask it like that. Cut it down to succinctly. I asked the question, and I kind of got the answer that I figured was going to be. They prepared for it. They knew what was coming, and they said, although maybe I would have.
So wait, what you just spent 10 minutes setting up the question. What was the question?
Yep, I asked the question. Ward, is it true? Are you willing to acknowledge that there's a 3-year deal available, an extension for Jim Harbaugh? And nice. I threw Good in there question. Too. And then I threw in there, I said, and tell me the merits of why you've decided to offer this extension. Because, everyone wants to know, why would you offer a coach that hasn't beat Ohio State another 3 years? And they punted on it. He said, we've always talked about at the end of the year, that's the plan. We're here to focus on the pandemic. And boy, did that erupt. Because then the follow-ups were, doesn't this mean you care about what's going to go on with the recruits? He's like, we're going to talk about this at the end, and that's it. We're going to talk about, he's like, he didn't care about negative recruiting. He just pushed it aside and said, this is what we do. And cuz I do think it's the wrong reaction. I think that you could have just said, obviously Jim's our coach. He's going to be here, and we're going to talk about it at the end of the year. It's all you had to say. You gave me a 40-second response. You could have gave a 5-second response. Yes. Because somebody leaked it. It wasn't like some blogger put it out there. It's John U. Bacon has the info. He had the scoop and put it out there. He's not going to risk his reputation to put out wrong information. He was specific. 3-year deal, Michigan-based, pay cut, and a lot of outs that Michigan can have. He didn't want to talk about it. And so it has
Super incentive-laden, too.
Yeah, it opens up the narrative that potentially, from what Mike Florio said, that there's some teams in the NFL that are clamoring to put together an offer. And probably for Jim, if there are NFL offers, this is perfect because he can leverage it to get at least his money back. At least. So, but for the program, this works out great for Jim Harbaugh only if there are NFL teams. Because when you have options, this is great. But for Michigan, this is all bad. If you're a recruit and you're a parent and you heard that, my question was direct. There was no wiggle room. Will you acknowledge that there's an offer? Nothing. If you're a parent, I'm not sending my kid to Michigan. They made a mistake in the manner in which they handled my easy question from my office.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think the way he could have handled it is exactly how you laid it out. And you're right. If there is they're supposed to have a very good recruiting class set for what is a very early signing day. And that's why this whole contract situation is extremely important, because I believe it's next week they're supposed to sit down and they're supposed to get a lot of their commitments. Now, the way everything is kind of set up with the transfer portal and how you don't have to sit out a year, I don't think it necessarily matters a ton anymore. But you do want to secure some of that class, and you don't really want to lose some of these really good athletes that you're supposed to be bringing in. Now, we've had this conversation before. I feel like if you're a really good coach, you can basically take a 2- and 3-star kid and spin him into an NFL caliber player, which is what a 4- and 5-star kid is supposed to be. Jim Harbaugh, I don't think necessarily had that great success doing that, but that's neither here nor there. You definitely don't want to hinder your class. What you don't want to do is you don't want to do what Mark D'Antonio did to Michigan State and Mel Tucker, where he basically left them holding a bag of dog crap, and he rolled out in basically the guise of the evening, and Mel Tucker was there like, cool, I don't have a recruiting class. I don't really have a quarterback. Rocky Lombardi, who? Oh. And I don't have much of an offensive line. What the hell's going on here? And he basically had to do everything on the fly. The one thing you don't want to do is do that to your next head coach. And where we're kind of trending, if you're Michigan, is you're headed in that direction. Jim Harbaugh's contract's really up in the air right now. Doesn't know if he has that 3-year deal that you've talked about, that 3-year extension. We have no idea if he's on his way out, because it doesn't sound like Ward, and it doesn't sound like a lot of the old blue hairs are really on boat with Jim Harbaugh right now. Like, they're just not on the same page. And I don't know if it comes down to him having to make changes to his staff, or if it's just time to go. Sometimes Jim Harbaugh just wears on people, and it's time to go. And this hasn't really worked out. You basically go 500 playing against Michigan State. You haven't beat Ohio State. You beat Notre Dame a couple of times. And you were brought in to win all of those games and to play in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship. And you've done none of those things. And now it's 6 years in. You still don't know who your quarterback is. And you haven't really produced a ton as far as big-time wins and high-caliber talent. You do get guys to the NFL, and that's great, but you're not doing enough to where you can compete regularly with the top of the college football ranks. And I think that has now worn on a lot of the alum and a lot of the people who have a lot of money who back the university and who backed this guy when he came in. So we're now at this weird tipping point where what's going to happen next? And you have all of this going on because the end of the season is coming up quickly. You have this early signing day, and you also have jobs opening up in the NFL. So this is kind of like the most chaotic, perfect storm for the University of Michigan and for Jim Harbaugh. And like you said, he could leverage maybe a better contract, but I don't know if Ward Manuel is willing to budge on what they've got. It might be one of those things where he's like, hey, this is the deal. Take it or leave it. If you want to be here, you'll take this and you'll make it work. Otherwise, the NFL is right there and you can go. It's weird because there are a couple of different jobs that have opened up, right? And a lot's been talked about with the Detroit Lions. There's been some conversations about him going back to Chicago where he started his career. So there are different teams, or the Jets even. There are different teams who are extremely interested in Jim Harbaugh, or at least it sounds like they're extremely interested. It's going to be fascinating to see how this kind of plays out. Basically, the end of the season is here. The season is done because you're not playing Ohio State. You're not going on to play for anything else. So I wish somebody would have followed up with, Ward, you're not playing Ohio State. Basically, your season is done. Can we just discuss this quickly? And, can you just give a yes or can you give a no and see what his reaction would have been? So it's really interesting to see how Michigan has got to this point, because this is something that should have been done before the season even started. And this seems like it was kind of a prove-it year, and obviously Michigan football hasn't proved it at all.
So I'm curious, since you're a big baller now, you're an executive, you're someone that's high rolling and things like that. Let's just say you take your, instead of spending on the plush TVs and game systems and the $550 AirPods that I know you put on order.
I want to know how I'm an executive. What am I executive? The only thing I'm an executive of is this network that we have.
Aren't you in management? You're in management, boss. You're a boss.
I mean, I am management, but I'm like mid-level management. I'm the guy they dump on.
So if you take a couple $100, let's just say instead of the plush steak dinners, the surf and turf that you're accustomed to and things like that, or the cleaning lady that you have come every Thursday, if you just took 1 week off of the cleaning lady.
You make it sound like I drive around in a Rolls Royce.
If you just took 1 week off of the cleaning lady at your luxurious condo and you had $250, would you have taken Michigan plus 29? Or would you have said, you know what, Ohio State wants to put an ass kicking. That number is so juicy. 29 points.
29,
if Michigan just competes, because nobody would have thought Detroit Mercy was going to compete with Michigan State, and they kept it in it, and they made a lot of people a lot of money. Michigan plus 29. Would you have thrown some money at it?
No,
I think 30-point victory. You thought 30 points, huh? You just get a couple, one turnover would have put you, like, if you lose 30-17, you're in the money.
So did we know who the quarterback was going to be? And did we even know if the quarterback was going to be healthy for Michigan? No. Mm-hmm. Did Ryan Day come in with an agenda and wanting to basically bury Michigan? Absolutely. Does Ryan Day? You've seen it firsthand with what happened last week with Michigan State. Basically, all their second and third string guys are just as good as Michigan's first string guys. So why the hell would you even attempt that? Because no matter what Ohio State's going to throw at you, it's going to be better than what you're putting on the field. And I don't care how juiced up and eager you are for the game. Doesn't matter. They're that much better, and Ryan Day was coming in looking to hurt you. So, hell no. Like the way I seen that game playing out, realistically, and this is not trying to be hyperbolic at all. I seen that game playing out to where it was 63-14.
Oh, you saw it. Ass kicking coming. So, bottom line, all kidding aside, all trolling aside, Michigan and the Big Ten had to operate in the best interest and of the health and safety of the players and everybody involved. So it's not going to happen. It's probably the end, but we're nearing the important topic, which is going to be what should Michigan do with Jim Harbaugh? It just speaks to really, if you think about it, Jim Harbaugh being tired of this and looking to the NFL. If there's a great offer, you get a nice, healthy $8-9 million offer from the Jets, from the Bears, from somebody that you could build a team around. I see potentially Michigan and Jim Harbaugh just saying, it just didn't work. 6 years, recruiting, what's there? Just move on from this situation quietly. You lost to Penn State and you move forward and everybody can be happy, because it just kind of seems right now that Michigan is stale and everybody in town, even diehard supporters that I never thought I would see tweeting bad stuff about Michigan, are really jumping off. I mean, Brian Greasy, local media, people that are pro Michigan are just now making the word Jim Harbaugh a no word. And I never really thought, I thought that they would be more support, but Jim Harbaugh now in these parts is a no word. And hey, for a Spartan supporter, it's not all bad. And again, covering sports in the COVID era has just been great. I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss it because then it takes out the opportunity to cover Michigan and Michigan State the way I did, because I can't go out to Ann Arbor and East Lansing every Tuesday and Monday and all that. So for the opportunity that I did get, there was a blessing in disguise, at least for the podcast network. You know what else is a blessing in disguise? Darrel Bevell. Sounds like he's the purveyor of energy all of a sudden. Now, for me, I don't like
the purveyor of energy.
Yes,
look at you.
I don't want to sound like doom and gloom, but if you're my age and your age now, late 30s, early 40s, and I get the notion that the players got to have fun and they got to be loose and play with their hair on fire per se, but to override that narrative of like, oh, we had fun, so we played. The real narrative is you played a crumb bum team in the Bears and you got to flex a little bit. You don't get to have fun when you're getting your tail kicked in by the Houston Texans and they're running a train on you offensively, and Will Fuller's blowing by Jamie Collins and making Justin Coleman run the wrong way, or when there's situations in which the team is better than you and you fail to execute. So the whole notion of, oh, we had fun, look at us, it's just, to be honest, cuz these players are soft as hell. That's not the kind of narrative. Listen, yes, we all saw you have fun. But to publicly talk about it, to go out and to say, oh, this is the most fun I've had playing football ever. No, we saw you. We saw you celebrating when you defeated the Atlanta Falcons in a miraculous fashion. We saw you celebrate and dance and throw out. Did everybody forget that Reggie Ragland was doing the electric boogaloo in the locker room when they won a game? No, winning is fun. And what happens is this team is not talented enough to win 12 games. So when you get your tail kicked in, it's not fun. So that part of it, I don't care about. And I think that's a little bit too much piling on Matt Patricia, because of the fact that the dude has a ring. Yeah, whoever gets the credit or whatever, he had to make calls. He had to show up. So for me, what I want to see, you want to have fun and you want to ball out and you want to use that narrative, go do the electric boogaloo and do a slide on the Packers. You want to do all that? Okay, let's start doing that. Okay, start acting like that against the Packers. You're about to get rolled out 37-18. You're about to get your tail kicked in. And I don't know where you go with that. You didn't have fun this week? Was the music the wrong selection this week? No, it's about talent. It's about making plays. And it's about correct schemes. And still, that defense looked really bad in the first half. And you were really, again, 2 coaching mistakes from the Bears away from losing. If the Bears go and get that first down, extend the football, get that first down, we're looking at something different. If Mitchell Trubisky doesn't pass the ball and hold the ball forever and get a strip sack, you're not in that position anymore. If Matt Nagy knows how to coach and knows how to properly put his team in position, you're about to lose the game. So spare me the whole, we got to dance around and have a good time and play music in the practice. Probably what's different is that when they dropped the football in practice, they weren't getting cussed at to the highest of heavens. But Reggie Ragland, even despite it, said, look, he said it clearly and succinctly, which was so eloquent. He said, what Matt Patricia did was he made it so unbelievably hard that when we got to the game, we were used to it. We knew what was coming. That we faced so much adversity during the week that it gave us an opportunity to at least understand what we're supposed to do on the field. So in that respect, you played a bad team. You got the victory. I'm all about it. It's great. It's fine. Drafting 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, you're not in the top 5, so I'm not one of those people that's like livid that they're upset, but I understand the argument. and people are like so passionate about how can you talk about the fact that a higher draft pick, look at the Lions, they drafted high and they drafted Okudah and Swift. Yeah, when you guys are good, that was the start. Now you're going to draft 9th or 10th or 11th. That's a higher draft pick. And all you got to do is use facts, and their argument becomes stupid. Because you would say that the best team that the Lions have put out this decade was 2014, right? Okay.
Yes.
Who was on that team? Calvin Johnson, Ndamukong Suh, Ezekiel Ansah, Matthew Stafford. Okay, and I laid it out clearly. That 2014 run was built up from the fact you drafted Calvin high in 2008, Stafford high in 2009, and Ndamukong Suh high in 2010, and then you drafted Ansah high number 5 in 2013. You built a defense. Hello. And then you rose up, and you had yourself a great year, and it all came together in 2014. That's all we're asking is do it again. Now, these people that are just like burying their heads in the sand and like just win, what we're saying is, yes, we acknowledge that the Lions don't pick properly. But if you're going out for the next hire, you kind of got to hope that the next guy could take the number 5 pick and get the right guy. Otherwise, why are you supporting the team if you think that the next guy is going to suck too? You know, so the idea is if you give the next guy the number 5 or 6 pick, he can go out and get talent. And then there's an opportunity for the Detroit Lions to have success. That's all it is. You don't have to be so passionate. You can argue the other side. You can say things like the Steelers and the Chiefs and everybody drafts low. But they have proven throughout their eternity to have better eye for talent. You guys don't. So if you don't have an eye for talent, make the job easier for the knucklehead. So, and
I think it's twofold too. So I think what you have to do, though, the next GM you have to believe in the next GM, whoever it is. You have to believe that he's going to come in and be able to make those draft picks. Now, we and you are both in lockstep where you would prefer drafting as high as possible because it gives you the best chance to get the player that you want. When you're drafting at 5 compared to when you're drafting at 12, there's roughly 7 more guys that are gone that could possibly have helped you in a myriad of different ways. So you want to draft as high as possible, but you also have the ability to build a team by drafting right around 12 if you get the right guy. But you have to be successful, and you have to have the ability to identify that talent. And then when you get that talent here, you've got to be able to put them in position to do what they do best. I'm going to give you a prime example. The last couple of weeks, I want to say on certain plays, I'm not going to say on every down, but on certain downs, Jared Davis has looked like a really good linebacker. Jared Davis has been a guy that we have routinely crushed since he's been drafted. And why is that? That's because he's been getting put in spots where he can succeed. He's been getting put in spots where he gets to do what he does best. He's probably going to end up leaving at the end of this year because why the hell would you stay? And he's going to go to a team like the Steelers where they'll use him as a 3-4 linebacker, and the guy will get to run around like TJ Watt, and he'll get to blow quarterbacks up and make sacks all day long. And just wait and see, and you'll be like, man, that was our guy. We could have had him. Why didn't it work out here? It was because he was playing inside instead of playing outside. He was playing in a 4-3 defense, and he was being used as a linebacker, and it just wasn't a fit because, again, your coaching staff drafts these players and then tries to fit square pegs into round holes and say, hey, look, it's got to work. And then when they don't work, we're all like, man, that guy's a scrub. He sucks. No, it's probably your coaching staff that really sucks. So your next GM and your next head coach basically have to be of the same mindset and be able to identify players for the scheme that they're going to run. That's why it works in San Francisco. That's why it works in Pittsburgh. That's why it works. I mean, Bill Belichick's the brain trust in New England. That's why it works there. But this is why these things work. So it's got to be a union of sorts. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's good. And I do think that Darrel Bevell is not a scrub. He's a guy that can motivate. I think that it's different. A different voice in the room is never a bad thing. But to play it up publicly, I think is odd. Look, Darrel Bevell is a guy that, and two, remember, guys, the team is 5-7 now with the victory. They had nothing to play for. I mean, they can play loose when it counts. Remember, guys, you guys act like you've never seen this script before. Do you guys not remember anything? This happens all the time. When the time comes and the pressure's the hottest, the team folds the biggest. And then they go out and they play well against teams that they're supposed to beat. And, the league is set up for you to be 8-8. So it's understandable. I respect that you guys all that are like rah-rah fanboys and you want to cheer on the team 24/7. But the argument is still there that a lot of these players that you're looking at are not going to be here. If the next general manager has a brain and has eyes and goes, I want to rebuild. I want 5 years and I want big money and I want to bring in my coach and I want to bring in a quarterback and we're going to build this thing. And that involves what the Pistons did, which is Aquara, buy. Kenny Galladay, give me 2/3. Give me 2-2-2. Give me 2/4, 2/3. Give me 2 of any selection and I will have 12 picks and I will use them in the next 2 or 3 drafts to retool this roster in free agency. And that's how you do it. This roster, it's been established, will never win a Super Bowl. It's going to get blown up. I don't see the next coach coming in and being like, I think I'm going to roll with this 8-8 squad and try to make them better. You need talent, and talent is acquired through the draft and free agency. So that's what it is. And so to have the highest number, look, I think that the thing that everyone's like, well, how do you root for them to lose? It's not possible. I mean, you could say
it's pretty easy.
You say, yeah, lose, don't make that play. But the players are playing hard, and I give Bevell credit. But would you entertain the notion? Because, I'm a nice guy. You're a nice guy. I don't want to see this guy that's been here that can have some consistency with Stafford and I also offered up a crazy idea. I was talking with a friend. I said, you know what? If you really want to do a rebuild and you don't really care what the fans think and you don't worry about an assistant, what you do is you hire the best pure talent in terms of acquiring talent, and you just sign Bevell for 3 years as the Ron Gardenhire of your team, and the Dwayne Casey of your team. You roll through 6-7 wins or 5 wins. You roll with the young quarterback, and you rebuild. And then when the time comes and you built the team, you broom him out and bring in the guy, the guy that's the hot coach off of a hot assistant off a Super Bowl or anything like that. Darrel Bevell as the interim would be fine if you're rebuilding, or if you want to have stability. I'm also looking at bringing in Salah, who I think is the number 1 candidate for the job. Bring him in and keep Bevell as the OC. You just room him back, and then Salah can fix that defense. If the Lions' offense is entertaining. It does something. It can be modified with the Swift and Galladay returning. Add 1 or 2 more pieces with the emerging Cephas, T.J. Hawkinson. Pair him up with another tight end. There's a framework of a system. I'm okay with Bevell in the mix. Interim head coach with a rebuild or the OC with Salah in charge of that defense.
Bro, do you hear what you're saying? This team just came off a win against a bad Chicago Bears team, and you want to keep the interim head coach after you just kind of pan them, being like, "Oh, we were so happy, we had so much fun." Look, I get blow that he's an offensive mind. I don't want to say genius, but
he's an offensive person.
He's an offensive mind. Yes, go offensive mind.
Yeah,
I like. He's not a bad OC, right? But this guy obviously wants to be a head coach. That's his whole deal. That's why he's going all in, trying to get this team to win as many games as possible. I don't think they're going to win very many more as the season winds down. But I think if you're Robert Salah, what you have to do is you have to blow this whole thing up, and you've got to do something completely different, because the way things have gone just hasn't worked at all. In all the years, it just hasn't worked. I'm more concerned about this report that came out that sounds like a lot of general managers and a lot of assistant general managers have a lot of concern coming here to Detroit because they have to report to other people in the room, not just Sheila Hamp, which means Rod Wood, the same guy who a few years ago was like, I don't know anything about football. Why this organization hasn't gone out and hired a staff to do a search for them is mind-blowing to me. Tony Dungy just signed on to do a search with a ton of other people in Houston. He's a Detroit guy. He's from Jackson, Michigan. Why you couldn't go and pick that guy? Because when you hear him talk, it sounds like his heartstrings are here. He sounds like he wants Detroit to do well. Yet you continue to do what you do as the Ford family and think you guys are the smartest freaking people in the room when it's been proven time in and time out that you guys are obviously the dummies of the NFL. Even the Cleveland Browns, who may become my new favorite team, are getting wins and look like they are on a path to be playoff contenders perennially. Whereas you can't even figure out how to get out of the basement of the NFC North. So, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Go ahead, Sheila. Keep running the organization and let a guy who knows nothing about football have a say in a bunch of stuff that's going to impact your organization. It doesn't make any sense the way they do things. They need to blow all this up, and they need to start from scratch. You want a clean slate. If you want to bring Robert Salah in, fine. But you know who I want to bring Robert Salah in? I want the guy that a board of football-minded people who are intimate with what's going on in the NFL, people who see things and know things and have contact with other people. I want that guy that they select, not that Sheila Ham selects or that Rod Wood has a say on. I don't give a shit what the hell they think. Obviously, they're both idiots. Sheila looked like a complete moron in her firing press conference of Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. Ill-prepared as all hell. Why is Rod Wood in the room when Darrel Bevell is giving a press conference? What is going on here? Why the hell is he even there? Don't you handle money? Don't you do marketing? Go into that room and be over there. Do not be over here with football stuff. You have zero say in football things. You're an idiot. Thank you.
Stay away from the football. Move forward.
Whoever that general manager is that board picks, if they pick Robert Salah, fantastic. Now let Robert Salah put his staff together. Okay. And now everybody just stay out of these people's way and let them do what they have to do and let them do what they know best. Do not meddle in what football people are doing because you are not football people. Sheila Hamp has done nothing in her life. She has never been a builder of anything. She has done zero. She basically was given the keys to the Cadillac, and they were like, don't scratch it, honey. And she was like, okay, cool. I'll try real hard. Rod Wood himself knows nothing about football. This is just basically a banker for the family. He's a money guy. He does marketing things. He tries to figure out how to bring more money in to this awful franchise so they can just sit up in their little fiefdom and do a whole lot of nothing but make our lives miserable because they can't put the right people in the right goddamn places. And I'm fucking tired of this goddamn organization, man. I'm sick of this shit.
Yeah, no doubt. And then they got Green Bay coming in. They're not winning. Guys, the playoffs, yeah, they're one game out, but let's pause on the celebratory nature of what we're seeing. It's a win, 5-7. Let's see what happens if they defeat Green Bay. And I will leave it at that. Love the energy, cuz. Love it. If you want to read more of what Adam brings to the table, follow him on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Not just for the podcast. He brings it daily, 24/7 on Twitter and on the broadcast at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast, cuz that was an amazing hour of podcasting. I loved it. Feel better talking about the coronavirus, problems at the office, how awesome it is to cover sports from my office, and breaking down the Detroit Lions. It was fun, man. Thank you so much. It's always good. We've been going strong since 2013. And like we've always said, often imitated, but never duplicated. There are no two other Doc and Jocks out there. You can try, but Doc and Jock are the reason this shit has gone where it is. There's a reason why we put a nice, healthy banner, and there's a reason why we're putting our ugly mugs right in front of the camera. And that's because you guys put us there, and it's great. And it's an amazing opportunity to broadcast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The Detroit Sports Podcast Network.